Robinson, who joins us right now. Ed, what do we got?
Well, let's see what we have here today. Members of Motley Crue have reacted negatively to a new installment of the Reels with a Z channel TV series Breaking the Band, with frontman Vince Neil disputing the accuracy of the purported biographical program and bassist Nikki Sixx threatening legal action against them, saying via Twitter, Breaking the Band was not authorized by Motley Crue. Our lawyers sent them a cease and desist, and further action will be taken, Eddie.
Well, let me say this about this series on this channel, Reels, which is actually spelled Reelz.
Yes.
And I have firsthand experience with this because the Van Halen one, if you've seen it, I'm in. And I mentioned this the other day when this came up. So my story with that is that I was approached about doing that during the holidays. I remember it was right around Christmas because it was weird that they were really insistent on having me in it and having me shoot around Christmas time. They came because I was almost like, are you really going to get a crew around Christmas? It was like the day before or between Christmas and New Year's. And I was like, are you guys really going to get a crew to come to my house in Jersey to interview me for this show? And they go, yes, we got to get this done. We want you in it. And I was turned on to it because Sammy Hagar and Michael Anthony both did it. They are also in the show. Now, we all know that Sammy and Michael are no longer part of Van Halen, right? But them being in it, two former members, good enough for me, and their camp said, hey, we'd like you to do it. You should do it if you want to do it. And they came out to my house, and they paid me a few bucks, not a lot. It was like $500 or something, $300. Not a lot of money, but I didn't do it for the money. I did it because those guys asked me, and they said it was something to do, and they made it easy for me. And they literally shot me in my basement doing it. And it was a local production company, but the company that was running it and producing the whole series was based in England, because I had a couple conversations with the guy in England. As a matter of fact, he Skyped in during my shoot. And at that time, I had no idea what these shows were because none of them had aired. And then when I saw the show air, I saw that they used reenactment scenes, and I also saw that they didn't clear a lot of music, which immediately told me that this was being done around the band. It was not done with Van Halen's authorization. And honestly, the Van Halen one, there's nothing overly egregious about it. I think it's fairly accurate from my knowledge. But obviously, Alex or Dave or Eddie are not talking in it and had nothing to do with it. So whenever any of these production companies do a show like this without the involvement of the bands naturally get pissed off because they have no control over it. Many of them are offered to be involved, and if they decline and they don't cooperate, the company either folds their tents and doesn't do them, or they do them around them, meaning that they get people like me or writers or journalists to commentate about the band. They find former members who will talk and put them on camera, and then when it comes down to doing the music, they have to work around it. How do they work around it? Well, they can play, I think you can play up to like 20 seconds or 10 seconds of something without having to clear it. So they might play a little 10-second snippet to feel like they're actually playing the music. Or they will hire a band that's, in the case of Van Halen, kind of sounds like a Van Halen song, but it really isn't. And then they'll run that audio over footage that Van Halen doesn't own that they can put in. So that's the workaround. And then, since you don't have full cooperation from the band's archives, you do what I hate, and that is you hire actors to do reenactments. So all of these shows are like that. They're all being done without the cooperation of the band, and ultimately that's not what you want as a viewer. But if the band is not going to cooperate and the production company is hell-bent on doing it anyway, then they're going to use their creative license, they're going to use the shortcuts and the workarounds to be able to produce a show without the band's involvement. And that's what all of these breaking the band deals are. And Dee Snider is the narrator of it. really, it was interesting to me, too, because when I did the Van Halen bit, they were talking to me about doing the voiceover for all of the shows, which, of course, I would have done and would have been a nice gig. But next thing I know, Dee was doing it. Good for Dee. But Dee, I saw, was responding to all the backlash about the Motley Crue one. And he's like, hey, I'm just reading copy, man. I don't put these shows together. This has all been on social media in the last 24 hours, which is true. Dee just gets scripts and reads them. But he's the voice of it. And I didn't see the Motley Crue one yet, but it's repeating, and I'll watch it. But apparently they took exception because they had a former manager on, and he gave the wrong story about how they broke up. And look, bands just are not going to like anything being done utilizing their name and likeness and story without them being involved and benefiting from it. But a lot of times that happens because they decline to be a part of it in the first place. And, you know, good luck to Motley going after them for this, but something tells me that, you know, this company has done these on a wide range of artists and genres of artists, and something tells me that they probably have it pretty buttoned up and figured out how to do all these little workarounds without getting sued. Because I don't think anybody has sued them yet or discouraged them from doing these yet. So they have to know the loopholes because they haven't had the involvement from the artist on one of them. And, you know, they kind of feel soap opera-ish and they kind of feel cheesy and the reenactments are cheesy. And, you know, some of the content from the contributors that they do talk to is pretty good if the person really knows their stuff. But it just comes off feeling cheesy because they don't have the clearances for the music. They can't really use the band as it's currently constituted. And the reenactment stuff, it's just ridiculous. I don't like reenactment stuff in general. And I had no idea it was going to be like that when I did. The only one I was a part of was the Van Halen one. But there's a Motley one, and there's another one that was a hard rock one on tonight. And I think it's tonight, and the Van Halen one. They're replaying them like crazy, and the whole channel is kind of like that. It's kind of like a gossipy sort of soap opera-ish sort of channel to begin with. I don't know how many people even get the channel. It's like I said, it's called Reels, Reelz. But it'll be curious. It'll be interesting to see if Motley has any success in stopping it or making a case, because something tells me these guys that produce this pretty much have it figured out because they've done a ton of them and not had the cooperation from one band yet, to my knowledge. What else, Ed?
Well, you want to talk about soap operas. They also have episodes on the Eagles, Guns N' Roses, Sonny and Cher, and the Spice Girls.
There's no way the Eagles, and there's no way Guns N' Roses, certainly no way Guns N' Roses signed off. I think I checked out. I'm kind of curious to watch them because I watch them in a different way. I watch them from a TV production standpoint because I'm curious to see how they cut around everything. Like, you know, how do they make it look like they're actually having the involvement of the band without having the involvement of the band? I find that always fascinating when those sort of shows are on. And those are the two I checked off, the Eagles one and the Guns one. I'm really curious to see what they do with that. And the other thing about the Eagles are managed by the same guy who manages Van Halen, Irving Azoff. So if they're messing around with Irving Azoff, they've got to have their ducks in a row knowing what they can and can't get away with on these shows, because if anybody could make a case in taking him down, he certainly could, because he's one of the most powerful people in the industry. We'll keep an eye on it. But the one thing that comes out of all of this is we just talked about it for, six minutes on national radio.
Yeah.
Controversy creates good awareness and marketing and promotion for something, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know there was a Motley Crue one. And then when I saw the stories and I saw the tweets from Vince and Nikki and Tommy pissed off about it, that made me go into my cable grid and DVR it. Otherwise, I might not have even known there was one of these on Motley Crue.
We gave them what they wanted.
Well, everybody did, because it's talked about. The band did because they went public about their displeasure about it. And whenever anybody does that, that's the first thing people want to see.
That is true.
What else?
Well, also concerning Crew, on the heels of the success of the Dirt biopic, sanctioned by the band, the original biography, The Dirt: Confessions of the World's Most Notorious Rock Band, will finally be available as an audiobook almost 20 years after the fact. It'll be released on June 25th. One caveat, though, no, the members of Motley Crue did not read the book here. It's done by pro audiobook VO people.
Ah, that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It would have been fun to hear them read their respective parts.
Mm-hmm. Zakk Wylde will take out Black Label Society for a tour later on this year alongside the Black Dahlia Murder and newish band Alien Weaponry. First date is September 11th in Ventura, California. They'll play theater-sized venues through early October in the Florida Panhandle.
All right.
A couple programming notes right here. So following the program today, coming up on Debatable, right after us, they're going to kick off with a big interview at 4 p.m. East, 1 p.m. West. Country star Maren Morris, who just did a big interview in Playboy magazine that sent some ripples throughout the entire music world, will be on with Alan Light and Jim Shear, sitting in for Mark Goodman on today's Debatable. Then later on tonight at 7 p.m. East, 4 p.m. West, a special presentation. Our good buddy Duff McKagan, a special concerning him. So basically, Henry Rollins interviewed Duff McKagan talking about Duff's new album, Tenderness. That interview will air tonight at 7 p.m. East, 4 p.m. West, as I just said. They talk about the songwriting process behind the new record and what fans can expect seeing him and Shooter Jennings on their current tour.
Nice. I just got the Duff McKagan album on CD, which, of course, is my favorite way to get music, and I look forward to checking that out and spending some time with it. I mean, I've listened to the record already, but I love having the CD and the liner notes and all that, so now I do.
And one final thing I have today, so as we revisit the soap opera that is the continued fallout concerning the 2008 Universal Studios fire, the BBC has published an email from the head of Universal Music Group to all staff in regards to said fire and said bombshell report in last week's New York Times Magazine. UMG Chairman and CEO Sir Lucian Grange, who I believe also teaches at Hogwarts, says, "We owe our artists transparency. We owe them answers," from the BBC's story. And I read in this letter to staff, Grange, who became global CEO of Universal Music back in 2011, said he was somewhat relieved by early reports from our team that many of the assertions and subsequent speculation are not accurate. However, he appeared to concede the losses had been extensive. Even though all of the released recordings lost in the fire will live on forever, losing so much archival material is nonetheless painful, he said, basically towing the line of, hey, it's still on CD. He goes on, though, quote, "These stories have prompted speculation, and having our artists and songwriters not knowing whether the speculation is accurate is completely unacceptable. I will ensure that the senior management of this company, starting with me, owns this." He says he's putting together a specialist team that will investigate and respond to artists who are worried about the status of their master recordings.
Moral of the story, long live the CD. At least the CDs exist for everybody. There are still digital versions of everything out there. If it was made on CD, I love my CDs. Long live the CD.